Welcome back, everybody, to the Nevin Shapiro Show. I'm here with Nevin Shapiro, and today we're going to take this a step further and dive into the Miami scandal. Our first ever episode that me and Nevin shot was on the Miami scandal, but we lightly touched it. We didn't really get into it too deep. Today we're going to get into a little deeper. So please before the video starts, please click that subscribe button. We're dropping videos every week, and as always, let's get into the action. Can you walk us through who specifically got you connected into the program at Miami from the beginning?
There was no player that got me connected into the booster part of that.
Okay.
I had always been a diehard Cane. I had gone to University of Miami, Ron Frazier's baseball camp in 1980. I had been following the Canes since 78. I used my friend his family is actually the Hecht Athletic Center. I was a guest of his. We were very close, so I used to use his seats regularly since the very early 80s. We were friends, so it wasn't like I was hitting him up, but
Yeah,
I was sort of hitting him up without hitting him up.
exactly.
And it just reached a point. I had done well on my own, and there was no need to wait on anyone to get me connected into that situation. So I just became a booster, got a lot of seats, press box passes, whatever it was, and did my own thing. And then I got cool with a number of guys, and then it took on its own life.
Was there any specific players that were able to help you get into the player circle?
Yeah.
of
Well,
itself?
the first group of guys that I was really, really close with was our 2001 defensive line. Cornelius Green, Andrew Williams, Jerome McDougal, inevitably Vince Wilfork, and that's why I have that picture of that original defensive line. I was really, really close with Corn. He was sort of like my queen bee. And but he was just a great guy, man. He was just my boy. I didn't look at him like a UM player. I just looked at him like he was my dude. He would hang out with my friends. We were close, man. He was part of the family, my family.
Right.
And one thing led to another, and my hosting skills took over. It was sort of just organic.
Right.
It wasn't a cut and dry situation.
So did you have any involvement with Butch Davis at Miami? If so, in what capacity?
Yeah, I was on the back end though. I was really more dealing with Pete Garcia.
Yeah.
Who was really Butch's right-hand guy. And he's really the one who built. I mean, Butch was the personnel guy, yes, of course. And he had a great staff around him, Greg Schiano. And so, yeah, I was close to that scene, real close. But I was closer with Pete Garcia, more so than anybody.
And every former player we speak to wanted Butch back when Larry Coker started to fail in the 2004-2005 period.
Yeah.
What did you see as the biggest difference between Butch and Butch Davis and Larry Coker?
Oh, I mean, that's not even a fair comparison. And I've shared that so many times about Larry Coker being a gentleman.
Yeah.
And really a super guy. So there's no ill will whatsoever. But there's no comparison. Butch Davis was Nick Saban before Nick Saban, and would have been. He would have won at least 10 national titles. At least 10. He should have won 3. Back to back to back.
Yep, 2000, 2001, 2002, yep.
They got robbed on the first one that they didn't get to play in, and the last one that they did. So they got robbed twice, and in between they won one.
I know. It sucks.
We would have smoked Oklahoma at home. Smoked them.
So let me ask you this. Like I just mentioned, there was a big uproar within the program to bring back Butch Davis. Who was more to blame for not bringing him back, Donna Shalala or Paul D?
Donna Shalala, specifically.
Okay.
She wasn't letting him back into the program.
Was there a specific reason?
I think she felt betrayed by him, that he just left. I don't know. I didn't have the specific conversation with her as to why he wasn't brought back, but I just know that her comments were, "You'll never coach at this university again, especially while I'm here."
Wow.
And that's a quote.
And
End quote.
and quote, what was your involvement in trying to get back Butch?
Very little.
Okay.
This was a move that Pete Garcia was vehemently trying to make happen. And kudos to him for trying so. It was an attempted coup that failed. But he tried. And of course, Pete went with Butch to Cleveland. And so they were always tied to the hip. And I think Butch was young enough at that time where he could have come back and transitioned still. He wasn't so far removed where he couldn't have done work. I'm positive.
So who would you say is more to blame for the collapse of the program in an overall sense, Donna Shalala or Paul D?
I don't like to speak negative towards someone who's no longer here.
Yeah.
Paul D was a great guy. I liked him very much personally. But he's, he passed on. God rest his soul. And I don't want to speak down on him, but, he's very much takes his share for that situation. He's still the AD at that time. And the biggest mistake, Mike, and I've said this before, and I've said it a number of times also, where I feel like I have to validate myself or explain myself. But that's me. But the truth of the matter is I really don't have to, because everybody who knows.
Yes, it's
right.
No need to talk about it.
The real program crash took place when they re-up Larry Coker. So who gets that blame? Paul D made that happen. Was it Shalala pushing it? I don't know who exactly pushed it, but they're both involved in it. And so somebody's got to share that equally.
And there was, just to let me stand corrected if I'm wrong, let me know. Pete Garcia was pushing both of them and advising them not to re-up Larry Coker.
Not only that,
okay.
Pete Garcia was adamantly telling Donna Shalala, give me the athletic director's job, fire Paul D, and allow me to fire Larry Coker.
Wow.
And I'm going to bring in Butch Davis. And then, of course, Pete would have been the AD. That is the move. That did not happen. I don't care what anyone says.
And when Pete said that to Donna, what was her response?
Well, I wasn't there for that exchange, so I'm going to have to go based on what Pete shared with me.
Okay.
She said, that's not going to happen. You, however, are fired, and Butch Davis will never see this campus again.
Wow.
Don't quote me on that, but it's very close to those words.
Unbelievable. So, as we just talked about, the associate athletic director at the time was Pete Garcia. Can you explain how your relationship was between you and Pete?
Solid. Because I knew what his plans were, and he got it. He built that dream that everyone calls the best team ever. He was the architect of that. He was the architect. Santana Moss, track scholarship. Brian McKinney, band scholarship. All kinds of hocus pocus.
He's making moves.
That's what you do. You think Nick Saban wasn't making moves?
Forget it.
Think Urban Meyer wasn't making moves?
They all were. We just do it bigger and better down here. Between Pete Garcia, Donna Shalala, or Paul D, were they privy to anything that you were doing regarding the acquisition of talent at Miami?
No.
None of them.
No. I don't know what they knew.
Okay.
I can tell you what they didn't know.
Indulge, please.
Well, they weren't part of the Love Boat.
The yachts.
They weren't part of Jet Ski Jambalaya. I mean, there was a lot of shit going on.
The mansion parties.
Fellas could tell it better than me.
Was there any coach, like Larry Coker, or anybody that knew of anything either other than the athletic directors and president? Did any of the coaches know what was going on?
I think so. Behind the scenes.
Okay.
Did they want to really rock the boat? No pun intended.
But they were cool with it because we were getting players.
I can't speak for them.
So here's my final question I have in this matter. Which guys were you closest with over the course of time at Miami? like brothers or sons to you?
There were so many, Mike. I mean, really, there were so many. I mean, I could say that if my closest guys, there were probably 25 really, really close. Some were a lot closer than others only because of their own personal family circumstances or whatnot. But I mean, there were so many. It wasn't just some like, people have this impression of me that I was like some kind of like Satan to these kids. I was really more of a bigger brother, and that's the truth. And you know what? A lot of these kids were starving. This wasn't the world of NIL. This was the world of like, we need some indulgence. We need some help. And I met a number of their families personally. The guys that I would say were really closest to me at my core would be like guys like Cornelius Green, Vince Wilfork, Devin Hester, Tavares Gooden, John Beeson, very close with, Randy Phillips certainly, Sean T. back when, prior to him going into the league. Man, there were so many. And then, as it got a little bit, as time moved on and I got older. So now I'm looking at the age gap is getting significant, and it wasn't the same for me. Now I really looked at these kids like almost like they were my sons. It was a different change. That 2001 team, 2002, I was only 8 years old, 9 years older than these guys. And, some of them were 23, 24 already. So I was only 31, 32. So we were pretty close in proximity. They were men. They weren't kids at this point, as opposed to how it progressed. And, man, I was really close with a lot of these guys, man.
So here's the real final question. How did it actually unfold for you as far as them catching you, or how did the whole thing fall apart towards the end? And how did that come about?
So, unbeknownst to the fan base and mostly everybody, there may be 25 people, you being one of them, who knows what really took place in my criminal case. And the feds started doing investigation regarding my allegiances, associations, whatnot. And so they started interviewing a number of guys. I didn't know. I wasn't aware. And I didn't learn that until after I was already in custody. And I got my discovery evidence. And the one thing that I really don't want to do, but I'm going to do it for the sake of you asking the question, like, I don't want to keep rehashing the situation. It's going to come out, whether it's the book or the film or whatever it's going to be. And, I'm not looking to ever speak down on the U again. I told you that in our last conversation. I will not speak down on them. So this is like water under the bridge, and it's happened. But what happened was 47 players were ready to testify against me. Most of them, if not all, 90% of them were second team, third team scout guys that were just hanger-oners to the situation. And it's my mistake, but I'm a good guy, so I allowed, if this guy's cool, he's with us. It wasn't cool for me because they fired a gun in my face. And one thing led to another, and then there were some words that got out publicly towards me while I'm in the middle of fighting for my freedom. And that was it. It was mano a mano. And I was defending my freedom. And there's a lot that I feel bad about, a lot. And I've spoken with many guys, not all of them, but many, a good majority. And the guys that I really felt horrible for, personally horrible, and I've told you this, are the guys that really got caught up in this shit, like that were still playing. Ray Armstrong, Dyron Dye, Travis Benjamin, Olivier Vernon, Ja'Cory Harris, Sean Spence, Aldarius, those guys, they didn't deserve it. And if some of those guys, which some of them were, on the Marcus Fortson, some of those guys who were on the outs a little bit with the coaching staff, it was an easy situation for the coaching staff to just cut bait with them and say, you know what, you're out. And it's no different than what goes on today. If you give them a reason to cut you and you're a problem, they're going to cut you and you're gone. I don't care how good you are.
Yep.
You're a headache and you're interchangeable as a piece. And in today's NIL world, it's just on a whole different level. But that's what happened, and it was an unfortunate situation. I regret it. I know some of the guys probably do regret it themselves. And, I can just move forward. What could I do? It's part of history.
So again, guys, I hope you really enjoyed this. This was a much deeper dive into the actual scandal of the University of Miami. So before you guys leave, please drop that subscribe button. Please drop a like. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one.